Don't come for Christmas, my mom said, like canceling her daughter was just canceling a dinner. My brother added, we'll pretend we don't know you. I thought it was guilt, until I learned my grandmother had died. I'm 35-year-old Clara Whitmore, and I never imagined hearing my own mother say those things. She calmly remarked, don't come for Christmas, as if calling off her daughter was as easy as calling off a dinner reservation. My brother Ethan's comment came before the shock had barely subsided. We'll pretend we don't know you. That Christmas, I stayed home by myself and consoled myself with Hallmark films and cheap chocolate. My phone then rang. Unknown figure. An attorney. My family is phoning me all the time now. Please leave a comment letting me know where you're viewing this. Prepare yourself for the family drama that altered everything by hitting like and subscribe. I grew up in Burlington, Vermont, and thought we were the stereotypical American middle-class family. At the neighborhood elementary school, Mom was a second-grade teacher. Dad was employed at a modest firm as an accountant. Like any other siblings, Ethan and I quarreled over the TV remote. Every year, Mom insisted on sending Christmas cards that featured our two-story colonial home with the white picket fence. The fissures, however, were always visible in retrospect, just below the glossy photo finish. Ethan has been the center of attention since I can remember. Mom would take him out for ice cream when he scored a goal in his Little League soccer match. When I won the spelling bee 3 years in a row, she would just nod and say, "That's nice, Clara." Although Dad never publicly disagreed with Mom, he would occasionally give me a wink or squeeze my shoulder in recognition. I excelled academically even though my family environment was unbalanced. Ethan barely made it out of high school, but I was awarded a full scholarship to Boston University. Mom gave an explanation for his unsatisfactory performance. Ethan's just not book smart like you, Clara. He has other talents. Apparently, those other skills included playing video games and drinking beer. However, I didn't share that insight. I got a job at a reputable Boston marketing company after graduating from college. In 5 years, I had saved enough money for a down payment on a modest condo and was leading my own staff. Ethan, meanwhile, lived in our parents' basement until he was 27, bouncing between jobs. My parents co-signed his apartment contract when he eventually moved out, and I later found out that they were paying half of his rent every month. My mother was an expert at subtly influencing people. Although she never explicitly condemned my decisions, her sighs of disappointment and, I'm just saying, remarks had an impact. When I turned down an invitation to dinner. I suppose your career is more important than family. When I decided to go on vacation with pals rather than go there. We won't be around forever, you know. First-class tickets to emotional exhaustion were her guilt excursions. Dad was still our family Switzerland, the peacekeeper. He would reply, "That's just how your mother is," in our few private chats. She means well. I used to wonder if he really thought that, or if it was just simpler than facing reality. Like a sponge, Ethan took in our mother's perspective. His sense of entitlement and his animosity toward me increased as we grew older. He felt particularly offended by my independence. Must be nice to be perfect, Clara, he would mock at family get-togethers. Some of us live in the real world. Last Thanksgiving was a watershed. In an effort to keep the peace during the holiday, I brought a bottle of wine and my homemade cranberry sauce. Then Mom revealed that she had assisted Ethan in making the down payment on a brand new BMW, which was more expensive than my first year's wage. The table fell silent when I asked if, considering their impending retirement, that was financially wise. Ethan yelled, "Well, we don't all have fancy jobs in the city." Mom went on to say, "Some of us still care about family," as though my professional achievement constituted a betrayal. I put my fork down. I've worked hard for everything I have. No one helped me with my down payments. Ethan rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go with the cellmate success story," he said. Ethan's arm was touched by Mom. "Let's not ruin dinner with money talk." I was lying awake that night in my childhood bedroom, gazing at the glow-in-the-dark stars that I had affixed to the ceiling when I was 12 years old. Something had changed. I understood that without boundaries I couldn't keep taking their jabs. I reduced the number of times I called home during the next few months from every day to once a week. In order to assist Ethan in moving into his new apartment, I turned down a weekend excursion. Mom really needed me to help organize her craft area, or Dad couldn't figure out how to set up his new printer, so I started refusing last-minute requests to drive the 3 hours to Vermont. My mother's resentment seemed to grow with each barrier I set. She said, "I gave up everything for you children," after a particularly difficult phone conversation. "The least you could do is be there when we need you." I still hope for reconciliation in spite of everything. I saw us gathered around the Christmas tree in December, perhaps not entirely content, but at least polite. I bought presents for everyone, asked for time off work, and even located an old fishing lure for Dad's collection. I thought that Christmas magic could help to smooth out the rocky parts of our relationship. I had achieved all I had hoped for in my life in Boston. The Charles River was visible from my condo on the 10th floor. My coworkers held me in high regard. Instead of harboring resentment toward my accomplishments, I had developed friendships with individuals who celebrated them. Jenna, my best friend, used to ask me why I was still making so much effort with my family. Over brunch in November, she remarked, "They sound toxic, Liv. To keep them warm, you don't have to keep burning yourself alive." I answered, "They're still my family," but even I felt that the statement was a lie. It's difficult. Jenna believed that family should support you rather than undermine you. Bad behavior is not excused by blood. Unwilling to acknowledge that she might be correct, I shifted the topic. Christmas was approaching. Christmas would be a better time. 10 days prior to Christmas, on December 15th, the call was received. With a drink of eggnog at my elbow and Bing Crosby crooning from my speakers, I was wrapping presents at my dining room table. My phone screen flashed Mom's name. "Hello, Mom," I said with a smile. "I just finished wrapping your present." "About Christmas," she said in a very distant tone. "This year we've been considering it might be best if you don't come." The scissors clattered on the hardwood floor after slipping out of my hand. "What? Why?" "Recently, things have become really tight. We reasoned that if we simply took a vacation from all the drama, everyone may enjoy the holiday more." "Drama? What's the drama?" My throat constricted. "You haven't been around much since Thanksgiving." "Clara, that is precisely what I mean. You've been so distant. Ethan says he feels like he can't even talk to you anymore without you judging him." My brother's voice appeared on the line as though he had been called. "Hey sis, no hard feelings, right? We just want a peaceful Christmas. Maybe next year when you're in a better headspace." "A better headspace?" I said again, unable to understand. He laughed as though he had been making a joke and said, "Yeah, less critical of everyone. Mom and Dad aren't getting any younger. They don't need the stress. We'll just pretend we don't know you this Christmas." My mom let out a sigh. "Don't be dramatic, Ethan. Clara understands, don't you, dear? It's just one Christmas." Soon after, the discussion came to an end. With trembling palms, I sat amid strewn about ribbon and gift paper. I was left speechless by the nonchalant cruelty of it all. They weren't merely refusing me an invitation, they were also holding me accountable. An hour later, I gave my father a call in the hopes of receiving some clarification or encouragement. "What's going on, Dad?" "I was just instructed by my mother not to attend Christmas." He sounded worn out. "Libby, your mother believes it's best for you. However, why? What was it I did?" "You are aware of her reaction when she receives criticism. Additionally, Ethan has been going through a difficult time at work. It's simply simpler this way." "Who finds it easier?" "Not for me." I broke off. Try to comprehend that sometimes keeping your daughter out of the Christmas festivities is a better way to maintain harmony. He let out a sigh. "I ought to leave. Your mom needs assistance preparing dinner." I hung up and poured myself another eggnog, adding a substantial amount of rum this time. I looked at pictures from last Christmas, Dad cutting the turkey, Mom grinning as Ethan unwrapped the pricey watch they had gotten him, and me grinning too much in the background. Had I dreamed it was all right? Did I overlook any signs? I gave Jenna a call the following morning. What did they do? After I clarified, she yelled, "Liv, that is completely screwed up. Perhaps they are correct. Perhaps I have been critical. Cease that immediately. You're being gaslighted by them. Come celebrate Christmas at my house. In any case, my mother already loves you more than I do." When they learned, other friends sent out similar invitations. Everyone was horrified for me, which gave me some assurance that I wasn't going overboard. The rejection still stung. This was not the first holiday that was unpleasant. When I got there 3 years ago, they were finishing dessert because Mom had forgotten to tell me that they had moved Christmas dinner to Christmas Eve. Ethan's girlfriend got a personalized stocking 5 years ago while mine was still in storage. Mom had stated, as if it were acceptable, "We didn't think you'd bring someone." However, this complete absence was unheard of. I had to make the tough choice to spend Christmas by myself as it drew near. Jenna's family get-together would only serve to emphasize my losses. Even while they were sincere, other friends' invitations seemed self-serving. I had to confront this anguish head-on and work through it on my own. Slowly at first, then suddenly the despair set in. I left the partially trimmed tree in my living room after I stopped decorating in the middle. I gave back the majority of the presents I had purchased. Sleep became elusive and my hunger vanished. I felt a void in my chest as I observed other families' preparations during my lengthy excursions around Boston. I was resolved not to mope though. I served supper to folks who had far more serious issues than family drama on Christmas Eve while volunteering at a nearby shelter. I got a lovely bottle of wine, made a small but special meal for myself, and planned a movie marathon for Christmas Day. I would establish new customs. I'd make it through this. The social media posts followed. On December 25th, Mom's meticulously chosen Christmas pictures were posted on Facebook. I didn't recognize the face in the usual family portrait in front of the tree, but it turned out to be Vivian Caldwell, our affluent neighbor whose husband owned half of Vermont's auto dealerships. Between my father and my brother, she smiled, standing where I should have been. There were more pictures of Vivian assisting Mom in the kitchen. Vivian unwrapping a present. At supper, Vivian raises a toast. Every picture served as a dagger. I hadn't been asked not to contribute to a more tranquil Christmas. Someone had taken my place. Throughout the day, messages came in from relatives. I missed you during the holiday. I hope you're not sick, my cousin Amber texted. Mom told you that you needed to work. That's difficult, my Uncle Steve wrote. Regarding my absence, they hadn't even been honest. There was something more profound going on, something that made my stomach turn. Like an unending desert, Christmas Day spread out in front of me. Like every December 25th since I was a child, I woke up early, my habit waking me up at 7 a.m. It was stiflingly quiet in my apartment. No shouts of excitement. Mom's cinnamon rolls didn't smell. No wrapping paper rustle. During my scheduled solo Christmas, I made myself go through the motions. Eggnog mixed with coffee. A video chat with Jenna prior to her joining in on her family's festivities. Watching It's a Wonderful Life while eating French toast at breakfast. I propped my sock-clad feet on the coffee table. Text messages from my extended relatives were continuously pinging my phone. Aunt Cheryl, you are missed. Your mother claims that you were unable to leave work. Cousin Ryan, without your caustic remarks about Ethan's presence, Christmas isn't the same, dude. Every message needed an answer. Every answer was a choice between telling the truth and upholding the myth my family had made up. I went in the middle. I'm also missing everyone. I hope to see you soon. Uncomfortable inquiries are avoided while remaining sufficiently vague to avoid lying. My curiosity got the better of me halfway through Miracle on 34th Street. To view more of my family's Christmas without me, I opened Instagram. Vivian Caldwell came back, holding up a gift while her diamond earrings caught the sun. The caption said, "We are so grateful that Vivian will be spending Christmas with us this year." I couldn't get the pictures off my mind. The living area has a new appearance. My grandmother's old side table had vanished to be replaced by a contemporary glass item. A slick leather chair that must have cost thousands of dollars had taken the place of Dad's treasured but worn recliner. Neither of my parents had ever bought expensive furnishings. Mom clipped coupons constantly while Dad drove automobiles until they died. Where had the funds for this alleged home renovation come from? Even more concerning was a picture of Ethan flaunting what looked to be a Rolex. Although they were comfortable, my parents were by no means wealthy. Their retirement savings were aggressive as Mom had always insisted. As I went back through their posts from the previous few months, I noticed trends that I had missed. Ethan's BMW, a new television, and weekend vacations to Maine. Little adjustments on their own, but as a group? They recommended a big change in finances. My immediate family did not communicate with me on New Year's Eve. I texted the group. Cheers to the new year. I miss and love you all. No answer. I tried to call Mom on January 2nd, but it went straight to voicemail. Dad's phone rang, but no one picked it up. I sent them each an email. Is everything all right? I'm concerned for you. Nothing. I started to worry more than I was injured. There had never been such silence. Mom would always call to rehash the dispute, even during our most heated arguments. Had something occurred? Were they sick? As a final resort, I called Ethan. What are you looking for? He replied in a chilly tone. To ensure that everyone is doing well. Nobody is picking up my calls. We're all right. Simply busy. Too busy to respond to an SMS message for more than a week? He let out a big sigh. Look, Mom feels that we should have some space at the moment. What is space from? What was it I did? Clara, it's not always about you. Certain things are simply family affairs. I am a member of the family. You understand what I mean. I had to leave. He ended the call. Family-run company. The words replayed in my head. Which family business had Vivian Caldwell but not me? Jenna and I got together for coffee the following day. I showed her the pictures. Outlined the reason for the quiet. Liv, this is strange. Very strange. She looked at the Christmas photos once more. Who is this woman? The person in your place in every picture. Vivian Caldwell. She's loaded, as is her husband. He is a dealership owner. She serves on 3 counties worth of charity boards. They never had children. When I sold Girl Scout cookies, she would give me crunchy granola bars. I detested those bars. Jenna scowled. And she's acting like a stand-in daughter for Christmas now? That is really strange. She paused. I'm sorry to ask. But is there any way that money may be involved? The new furnishings. The Rolex. The BMW? What are you saying? I'm not really sure. However, there's typically a backstory when someone suddenly becomes wealthy and starts acting strangely. She gave me a gentle squeeze on the palm. Just to be safe, you might want to see if your name is still associated with any family assets or accounts. I dismissed it with a giggle. Money wasn't something my parents would keep from me. They weren't dishonest, but they were many things. Doubt began to creep in as I was saying it. I had an odd memory from last summer that night. On some ancient property documents, Mom had inquired about my complete legal name. Clara N. Whitmore or Clara A. Whitmore, is it right? How they scribbled that on that ancient deed is beyond me. What deed had you done when I asked? She had shifted the topic. I didn't give it much thought at the moment. At this point, it chilled me. January gave way to February. My family failed to acknowledge my birthday as it passed. I started to feel the weight of the silence everywhere I went. I poured myself into my work, taking on extra tasks to make up for the excessively long evening hours. I began going to a therapist in an attempt to sort out my emotional mess. If they got in touch, would you want to get in touch with them? During one session, Dr. Elise inquired. I said, I don't know anymore. I'm beginning to question whether or not I ever knew them well. Constant worry and bewilderment started to interfere with my ability to focus, eat, and sleep. I was crying on the floor of my bathroom at 3 in the morning one late February evening while holding my phone and gazing at the last family photo we had taken together during Thanksgiving. I muttered to myself, enough. With or without them, I had to get on with my life. I put away the framed pictures in my living room, erased the family text thread, and took my parents' birthdays off of my calendar. They would have all the space they desired. I was discussing campaign data with my team on a Wednesday in early March when the call came in. Unknown figure. Area code for Connecticut. I would normally leave it on voicemail, but for some reason I had to excuse myself and answer. A deep male voice said, Is this Clara Whitmore? Indeed. Who's phoning? James Callahan is my name. I practice law in Hartford with Caldwell, Harrington, and Pierce. I'm phoning with reference to Eleanor Whitmore estate. My grandmother. I felt cold. 5 years ago, my grandmother passed away. Quiet. Then, Ms. Whitmore. Eleanor Whitmore died on November 12th of last year, based on our records. I felt as though the floor was tilting under me. I responded, scarcely raising my voice above a whisper, That's impossible. I would have been aware. A funeral would have been placed. Mr. Harrington said softly, I know this must be shocking. Perhaps we ought to get together. Would you be able to visit our Hartford offices? I sat in an elegantly furnished conference room 2 days later, still incredulous. A folder was set down in front of me by Mr. Harrington, a respectable guy in his 50s with salt and pepper hair. Your grandmother's death certificate, he remarked quietly as he moved the document forward. And the obituary published in the Burlington Free Press. I gazed at the papers. In black and white, it read, Margaret Whitmore, 87, dead. The funeral obituary was short. It talked about her love of gardening, her work as a teacher, and the fact that her son James Whitmore, his wife Diane, and grandson Jacob survived her. Her spouse, Richard, died before her. Don't bring me up. Like I didn't even exist. I don't understand, I said. Why wasn't I informed? Why did I miss the funeral? Mr. Harrington took off his glasses and gave me a grave and empathetic gaze. I am the executor of your grandmother's will, which is why I reached out to you, Ms. Whitmore. A will in which you are listed as the principal beneficiary. It felt like the room was spinning. What? Margaret Whitmore left the majority of her estate to you, her house in Burlington, her investments, and most of her personal possessions. He crossed the table and slid another document. A copy of the will is here. 3 years have passed since the last update. My fingers shaking, I looked over the paper. Her recognizable signature was at the bottom. The name of my granny. Does my family know about this? I inquired. Calmly, yes, he replied. They were notified right away following her death. In December, your brother and parents challenged the will, arguing Margaret was not competent to make these decisions. December. When I was not invited to Christmas. When Vivian Caldwell took my position. When the quiet started. Last month, the court denied their plea. There was plenty of proof that your grandmother was capable, including witness accounts, medical documents, and films. She specifically addressed her decisions in the recordings. Videos. I repeated. After giving me a nod, Mr. Harrington turned his laptop in my direction. She requested that you look at these in privacy. I'll wait a little while. Then he left the room. My grandmother was shown sitting in her sunroom on screen. Her bright blue eyes were obviously the same, yet she appeared weaker than I remembered. She said, "Clara, my darling girl," in a calm, warm voice. "I'm dead if you're viewing this. I think your parents might not have told you properly, so I've given James instructions to find you." She smiled a little dejectedly. "I've observed their treatment of you over the years, including the detachment they established, their partiality for Ethan, and their covert harshness passed off as parental guidance. Although your grandfather always advised patience when it came to family affairs, I should have spoken up sooner." She inclined toward the camera a little. "After Richard died, I saw things even more clearly. My grandma remarked, you've built a beautiful life on your own terms with a firm tone. Without their backing. Despite your hectic schedule, you come see me frequently. You don't get reminded to call." Her face grew stern. "Meanwhile, your mother visits only when she wants something, usually money for Ethan's latest mishap." She inhaled. "With a few minor exclusions for personal belongings your father might desire, I have chosen to leave you my estate. Although your grandfather's investments performed well, your grandfather and I always had modest lives. There is more than enough to ensure your future, and the house is paid off." She gave the camera her whole attention. "Your folks are aware of my desires. They'll probably resist it though. Clara, don't back down." I took this decision with a loving heart and a clear head. As the video came to a conclusion, I started crying. Then a second video started. Grandma went on, "I should explain about the house. With the help of a power of attorney I stupidly gave when I had my hip replaced, your mother has been borrowing against it for years. Little sums at first, then bigger ones as Ethan's financial difficulties worsened." She became brittle in her voice. "I just lately found out about this. Although I have since revised my will and renounced that authority, the harm is significant. I've told James to do a thorough investigation." Then came 3 additional videos. In one, Grandma carefully narrated precise examples of her mental sharpness, including dates, facts, and names. Another clarified why she had only bequeathed Ethan a tiny sum of money. In the final one, she pointed to each piece in a jewelry box as she gently opened it. She whispered, "Clara, you have the antique collection. Among them is my engagement ring. Only wear it if it makes you happy." I could hardly talk when Mr. Harrington came back. They knew I was able to say at last. They concealed her passing even though they knew she had left everything to me. Without me, they had a funeral. "I'm afraid so," he muttered. "Your mother said you had relocated abroad when we were unable to find you at the address we had on file. We didn't know the truth till our investigator discovered your present details. The timing," I secretly said. "They uninvited me from Christmas right after they contested the will." He gave a nod. The first hearing took place on December 14th. The court's need for complete family financial declarations turned up some troubling transactions. He slid another file toward me after opening it. "Your parents' house has a new mortgage. Taken out large loans. Your brother has multiple credit cards in your parents' names that are fully charged. Additionally, without your grandmother's knowledge, they have been using her home as collateral." Everything was coming together. The new furnishings. Ethan's BMW. The weekend excursions. "Correct," said Mr. Harrington. "Those actions are now frozen. However, significant harm was done. The removal of personal belongings from the residence following Margaret's death, but prior to the court sealing the property, is another issue." I visualized the pictures once more. The old side table is gone. Dad's couch is gone. I probably hadn't even spotted other valuable pieces. What happens now? I inquired. "You will receive the house and any other assets that are left over. Naturally, there will be tax implications, and we will assist you with them." However, you'll also have to make a decision regarding the unlawful financial behavior. Press charges, you mean? In opposition to my own parents. Mr. Harrington's face was strong but sympathetic. You have complete control over it, Ms. Whitmore. However, their actions were unlawful in addition to being morally dubious. Along with a heavy folder of papers, I also left his office feeling more down than when I had first arrived. Without the opportunity to say goodbye, my grandmother passed away. My family was exposed as perhaps criminal as well as emotionally manipulative. And me, all of a sudden I had investments in real estate that I never would have imagined. By themselves. Not in the dark anymore, though. That night, I cried until I was completely dry in my hotel room. Even though Grandma Margaret's pain was raw and new, it wasn't only for her. I grieved for the family I believed I had. I thought my parents still loved me in spite of their imperfections. Before he learned to hate me, my brother and I would play tag in the backyard. I missed him. Just as I was about to fall asleep, a text message appeared on my phone. Mom, we must speak. Give us a call right now. Then another, all of this is a miscommunication. Give us a call, please. Additionally, your father is not feeling well. His heart is being broken by you. They were unable to get in touch with me quickly enough after months of silence. Throughout the night and into the following morning, the texts continued to arrive. Mom, our family situation is beyond the lawyer's comprehension. Dad, Libby, give me a call. Everything may be explained by us. Ethan, well done, sister. You have to be the unique one all the time, don't you? After turning off my phone, I went back to see Mr. Harrington to sign the initial documents. I was still coming to terms with my fortune by the afternoon when I was returning to Boston by car. Grandma's house, even with the loans secured by it, was worth almost $400,000. Accounts for investments totaling more than $600,000. Jewelry and other personal belongings were valued at $75,000. Such wealth was not what I had anticipated. I never centered my life on inheriting something. There were 32 text messages and 17 missed calls when I switched my phone back on at home. Jenna had even been contacted by my mother via Facebook, requesting that I call home due to an urgent family matter. As I paced the living room, I inhaled deeply and dialed my parents' landline, setting the call on speaker. On the first ring, Mom answered. Thank God, Clara. We have been attempting to contact you. I know. Your grandmother's estate and you have a serious misunderstanding. That attorney is completely mistaken. Mom, what precisely is wrong with him? Grandma passed away in November? That you failed to inform me? That you did not include me in the funeral? That you disagreed with her will? In an instant, her tone changed from worried to defensive. Your career has kept you extremely busy. We didn't want to cause you any trouble. Additionally, your grandmother's final thoughts were clouded by her will. Ethan has struggled so much. If she had been herself, she would have wanted to assist him. Mom, the will was made 3 years ago. She had complete lucidity. She even made films to explain her choices. Silence. Then videos? Which videos? Mom, she was aware. Concerning the loans. Regarding the use of her home as security. She was well informed. That is absurd. A power of attorney was held by your father. Everything was entirely lawful. Last year, she terminated that power of attorney. The following transactions were fraudulent. More quiet. In the background, I could hear muted voices. Then my dad answered the phone. Listen, Livy, your mom is upset. All of us are. Would it be possible for us to discuss this as a family in person? His voice still had the ability to touch my heart in spite of everything. I don't know, Dad. Please. Sunday brunch at Cambridge's Hilton. Neutral territory. Simply speak. That is all we are requesting. Against my better judgment and Mr. Harrington's advice, I agreed. Although he would wait in the hotel lobby ready to go if necessary, he insisted on going with me. Sunday came raining and freezing, just like how I was feeling. I arrived early, found a seat in the restaurant's quiet corner, and ordered coffee to calm myself. Ethan and my parents entered at exactly 11 a.m. Mom's tight lines around her mouth showed strain, and she was thinner than she had been over Thanksgiving. Dad's shoulders drooped, as if he had aged years in a matter of months. Ethan, on the other hand, continued to wear what seemed like a brand-new fancy watch and his entitled confidence like pricey fragrance. Clara, Mom remarked as they seated, nodding stiffly. I held my fingers tightly around my coffee cup as Dad reached across the table for it. You look well, Libby. Ethan gave a snort. Yeah, inheritance agrees with her. Ethan, Dad cautioned. The tension in the air was briefly relieved when a waiter came to take their drink orders. When he was gone, Mom leaned forward and spoke in a measured tone. "We need to discuss this situation like adults," she said. "Your grandma was perplexed by the family's financial situation. For years, your father assisted in running her affairs until she took back control. I think there was a miscommunication. She didn't thoroughly read the documents before signing them. The video suggests otherwise." Mom's grin grew strained. Elderly individuals are susceptible to influence. What the lawyer instructed her to say is unknown. "Mom, she made those movies more than a year ago. Prior to her taking away Dad's power of attorney. Prior to her learning of the unapproved loans." She laughed and said unauthorized. "Her son is your father. Family supports family." A gaze from a nearby table prompted her to raise her voice a little. Seeing it, she lowered it one more. "We did everything for this family. That occasionally meant lending Ethan a hand when he needed one. And what about when I needed help?" Before I could stop it, the query escaped. Dad remarked hastily, "You've always been so independent. So capable." "Ethan needed more support." "You mean Ethan demanded more support," I clarified. "And you gave it to him, even when it meant stealing from Grandma." The silverware rattled as Ethan slapped his hand down on the table. "Once again, you've missed the mark. You believe that you are far superior than me. The bad news is that not everyone is given everything completely." I gave him a disbelieving look. What was it that I was given? The scholarship for which I fought? The job I got? The condo for which I saved money? I bent over. "Meanwhile, you've had every advantage: private tutors, sports camps, car down payments, rent subsidies." "Children," Mom interrupted in a stern voice. "This isn't productive." "I'm not a child," I told them calmly. "My age is 34. And this is the first time I've seen my family in a clear picture." Dad appeared to be in anguish. "Libby, we're not perfect. We're able to acknowledge that. We are still family, though. We can undoubtedly come up with a solution that benefits everyone." I gave him a close look. "What solution did you have in mind?" Even though I already knew, I asked. Mom didn't think twice. "Your grandmother's house has been in the family for generations. Mom firmly stated it should stay that way. You and Ethan may split up the investments equally. It's only right." "Fair?" Stunned, I repeated. Was it justifiable to keep Grandma's passing a secret from me? To have her burial without my presence? To act as though her obituary didn't mention me? Ethan mumbled, "You're being dramatic. It's always the Clara show." "No." I stood, my fury suddenly subdued. The Clara show has never been the case. With Dad serving as the silent sponsor and Mom as the producer, it has always been the Ethan show. I gave them all a direct glance. "Well, the show's been canceled." "Sit down," yelled Mom. "People are staring." "Let them stare," I informed them. I grabbed my handbag and pushed my chair back, saying, "I'm done performing for this family. Grandma had a purpose behind her decisions. I'm paying tribute to them." Dad's voice was begging as he stretched out. "Libby, please. Your mom and I are having difficulties. The residence, our retirement. Before remortgaging your house to purchase a BMW for Ethan, you need to have considered that." I took his hand off my arm gently. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about retrieving Grandma's personal items that were removed from her house." Mom called after me as I turned to go. "If you do this, if you don't help your family, don't ever expect to be welcomed back." I stopped at the door and turned to look behind me. "Mom, you've already revoked my Christmas invitation. We're probably past welcome." The consequences were immediate and far-reaching. Extended family members started picking sides within a few days. I was hurting my mother's heart, and Cheryl informed me over the phone. Uncle Steve proposed a compromise to maintain harmony among the family. "I never imagined you could be so cold," texted cousin Ryan. The only person who expressed a different sentiment was Aunt Helen, my father's sister. She said, "Margaret told me what she planned to do when we spoke on the phone. Clara, she was mentally healthy. She was fully aware of her desires." After a moment, she softly said, "Don't let them gaslight you." My parents, meanwhile, started what can only be called a smear campaign. My mental health was the source of concerns from former family friends. My mother received lots of supportive comments on her ambiguous Facebook status about the pain when children turn against the parents who sacrificed everything. Ethan escalated even further. His warnings about family devotion and how I would regret this betrayal became more and more menacing. He made fresh email accounts to carry on the harassing after I banned his number. The strain was nearly intolerable. Every morning I checked my phone with dread and a knot in my stomach. To assist me get through the storm, my therapist recommended short-term anxiety medication. When I couldn't handle another argument, Jenna and a few close pals established a protective circle, answering my calls and filtering my texts. I doubt I could have survived those initial weeks without them. I found it difficult to maintain appearances at work. My crew observed my lack of focus and my waning passion for the tasks that had made me happy. I eventually told my supervisor after missing deadlines and making a number of discreet interventions. I was astounded by her response. She did more than simply give her approval for more personal days. She made sure I realized that I didn't have to face this alone and put me in touch with the company's legal resources. I reached my breaking point 6 weeks following the altercation at brunch. Ethan arrived in my office building, irate, boisterous, and insane. I stole what's rightfully his, he said, making a commotion in the lobby and demanding to talk to me. He had to be taken out by security. But not before yelling, "She is lying. She embezzled money from her own relatives." I had many of eyes on me. The marble lobby resonated with my name, and I just stood there motionless. I made a decision that night that was both liberating and terrifying. I would set clear limits via the legal system. Mr. Harrington requested that Ethan be subject to a restraining order. In response to my parents' public remarks, he sent them official cease and desist letters. With the possibility of filing charges still open, he also started the process to retrieve the things that had been taken from my grandmother's home. In a phone conversation, I informed him, "This isn't about punishment. It's about protection, mine, and my grandmother's wishes." His words were, "I understand, and for what it's worth, I think Margaret would be proud of your resolve." I let myself think that might be the case for the first time since that fateful phone conversation in December. The first hints of spring arrived in Boston in April, along with fresh twists in the story of my inheritance. I was introduced to a financial advisor who specialized in unexpected money by Mr. Harrington. In order to secure my future and respect my grandmother's pragmatic character, we collaborated to develop a plan for the investment accounts. In the meantime, the legal limits started to work as intended. Following the restraining order, Ethan ceased sending me threatening messages. After receiving the cease and desist letters, my parents' social media campaign slowed down. More private healing took place as the public drama subsided. I began seeing Dr. Elise once a week to go through decades of family dysfunction. She clarified during one session that what you're experiencing is a form of grief, not just for your grandmother, but for the family you thought you had. Is it wrong that sometimes I feel relieved? I inquired. Like a weight has been lifted. That weight, she added softly, was the hassle of attempting to win love that ought to have come naturally. Relief is a normal reaction. I started making choices regarding the material possessions I had inherited as my mental state improved. For Grandma's house, I employed a property manager. Not only was I unwilling to live in Burlington because it was too close to my parents and history, but I was also not ready to sell it. What I had feared was confirmed by the manager's first report. A number of important things were missing. My father finally consented to restore some of them through his lawyer. The old side table. Grandma's first edition book collection. For decades, a picture created by a local artist from Vermont has been displayed in her dining room. Every item was packaged with care upon arrival. There was a handwritten note from Dad in the last box. "I apologize, Libby, for everything." No signature. Just those 6 words, which simultaneously moved and enraged me. Although the inheritance's practical components offered structure, the emotional terrain remained difficult. Gatherings with extended family members loomed like possible minefields. Holiday preparations became intricate calculations. When acquaintances inquired about my family, even light-hearted chats became unpleasant. My network of support was vital throughout this period. To evaluate Grandma's house, Jenna and I traveled to Burlington for a challenging weekend. Without ever hurrying me, she held my hand through silent rooms and dusty memories. Both perspective and gallows humor were provided by my colleague Thomas, whose own family had rejected him when he came out. I was able to physically release my emotional stress thanks to my jogging group. I gradually started creating a chosen family, something I never had as a child. My cousin Amber sent me an unexpected note in late May. Although we had been close as kids, as adults we had become more distant. According to her writing, "I need to tell you something. Your mother called my mother in an attempt to exert pressure on you regarding the bequest. Your mother shouted some terrible things about you when you refused. Very bad, Liv. Mom finally told her that maybe the problem wasn't you at all, but how they've treated you," she said after pausing. "Since then, they have not communicated." It was a minor but significant vindication. People were starting to realize what I had been through for years. Another surprise arrived in June in the form of an email from Vivian Caldwell, who had taken my job at Christmas. Subject: I must apologize to you. I didn't realize you weren't invited to the family Christmas, Clara. Your mother informed me that you were too preoccupied with your work to attend. If I had known the reality, I would never have gone. Even worse, I just found out that they contacted me mostly due to my relationships with estate lawyers. I sincerely apologize for my unintentional involvement in this distressing circumstance. What I had long suspected was verified by the message. My replacement was a calculated move rather than an accident. And harsh. Vivian was cultivated by my parents because of her connections, probably in the hopes that she would help challenge Grandma's will. I had to make a big decision regarding the inheritance in July. The value of Grandma's house had been severely diminished by the loans my parents had taken out against it. If the matter wasn't handled, the bank threatened to foreclose. I had two choices. Repay the loans, so providing my parents with the money they had attempted to steal without my consent. Allow the foreclosure to proceed. You will lose a sizable amount of the property's worth, but you will not be financially involved with them again. I spoke with Dr. Elise about both options. Either choice is valid, she stated slowly. The question is, which lets you move forward with the least regret? I gave it a lot of thought before deciding to repay the loans. I didn't do it mindlessly, though. My parents received an official loan from Mr. Harrington, complete with reduced interest and a 5-year grace period before repayment started. This isn't forgiveness, I clarified when he arched an eyebrow. It's limits. I'm deciding how I want their financial problems to affect me moving ahead. I started using little bits of the inheritance in ways that paid tribute to Grandma Margaret as the summer went on. She had been an elementary school teacher for more than 30 years, and I created a scholarship there. During her retirement, she volunteered at the Botanical Garden, where I made a donation. Every motion seemed like a move in the direction of something more subdued, something more accurate. A life based on purpose rather than a response to suffering. Grandma had always urged me to try watercolor painting, but I had never found the opportunity to do so until I enrolled in a class. It didn't matter that I wasn't very good. My mother tried to manipulate me one last time in August. She arrived at my condo without warning, looking really ill and thinner than before. As soon as I opened the door, she said, "You're killing your father. He has extremely high blood pressure. According to his physician, the tension could result in a heart attack at any time." I was briefly in danger of being overcome by my previous guilt. Then I recalled what Dr. Elise had said about emotional accountability. "I apologize, I'm Dad, am I not?" "Well," I answered coolly, "I'm not accountable for his decisions or his health. How can you be so cold after everything we've done for you?" she asked. The question took me by surprise, not because it was unexpected, but because I knew the answer for the first time. "What exactly did you do for me, Mom?" She blinked. "Yes, you supplied the necessities. Clothing, food, and shelter. But affection? Assistance? Honoring my achievements? Appreciation of my value? When was the last time you gave those freely, without comparison or condition?" As though I had hit her, she took a step back. "We gave you everything." "No," I replied. "You put all into Ethan. Under the pretext of parenting, you assigned me responsibilities and offered me criticism. That is untrue. You were always loved by us. We simply presented it in a different way. Since you were more powerful." Silently, "I wasn't stronger," I said. "I discovered too early that I couldn't rely on you. I therefore developed my strength out of need." Her expression stiffened. "If that's how you choose to see your childhood, there's nothing I can say." "You're right about that." I moved out of the way and kept the door open. "Please don't come here again without calling first." She looked aside. However, I called after her before she got to the elevator, saying, "I hope Dad gets the medical care he needs if it's really necessary. However, don't use his health into a weapon against me once more." We had never discussed anything so openly, and for a very long time, maybe the last. 9 months had passed after the Christmas rejection as of September. I found out about my inheritance 6 months ago. I had to make a decision that was both important and frightening as Grandma Margaret's death anniversary drew near. In order to support first-generation college students, I would create the Ella Laner Whitmore Foundation for Educational Equity with a portion of the inheritance. I informed the lawyer assisting with the foundation's setup that she thought education was the greatest gift. and she would have wanted her legacy to open doors for others, the way she always tried to open them for me. I found myself thinking back on the significant changes that had occurred over the preceding year, as summer turned to fall and another holiday season drew near. I no longer had the family I had so desperately wanted to please in my life. The continual burden of their expectations, however, also weighed heavily. They were replaced by the watercolor brush I was holding. Letters from people applying for scholarships, peaceful mornings, enduring friendships, and a growing sense of identity. I wasn't waiting for a seat at someone else's table for the first time. I was constructing mine. In addition to providing me with financial stability, the unexpected windfall also offered me a terrible form of independence. Once more, the grandmother I had trusted and loved had guarded me from the hereafter. I wasn't gullible enough to think the drama was over for good. Holidays, sickness, and significant life events can all trigger the reactivation of family estrangements. But for the first time since that phone call in December, I felt ready for anything. I had set limits, created a network of support. I took back my power. I said in a whisper, "Thank you for seeing me." As I hung Grandma's little painting landscape in my living room, the last of her personal belongings I had decided to save. When they were unable to, I was stirring mulled cider for the family Christmas I had chosen to host in my freshly remodeled kitchen, a year after the call that turned everything upside down. On a tray Jenna arranged cookies. We placed fairy lights across my living room, and Thomas tested them. Nat King Cole's song about toasting chestnuts over an open flame played in the background. Eric, the kind architect I'd been seeing for 3 months, remarked, "Need any help with that cider?" It was the first relationship since the breakdown of my family that I felt emotionally stable enough to pursue. I grinned and offered him a sample. "Just your expert opinion on the spice balance," I said. As our visitors showed up with gifts, laughs, and dishes, I was astounded by how much had changed in just a year. Yes, I was financially stable thanks to the bequest. The true change, however, had been inward. After a successful debut, the Ella Laner Whitmore Foundation gave its inaugural scholarships to 5 worthy students. Grandma's home was now a profitable rental property, and the foundation was supported in part by the money made from it. I was thankful for the safety net provided by the investment accounts, but it no longer defined me. Therapy had been a difficult, hard, and extremely necessary part of my healing process. I had never before been able to properly identify these patterns until Dr. Elise helped me. How I looked to success for approval. How I expressed regret for my personal achievements if they jeopardized family harmony. How I embraced shards of love, and referred to it as such. Confronting them wasn't the most difficult thing. It was embracing the possibility that they would never change. I later found myself stating that reality out loud as we sat around the table. "The relationship I always hoped for with my parents," I responded, "might never exist." As he passed the mashed potatoes, Thomas retorted, "Acceptance doesn't mean approval. It just means you stop fighting reality." And this was the actual situation. Although my parents and I were still apart, the type of separation had changed. The hostile messages had ceased. Smear efforts were no longer as active. Now there was just silence, broken only by the formal letters from lawyers every now and again. Ethan had relocated to Florida in order to work at a dealership owned by Vivian Caldwell's husband. One last irony that could have hurt at one point. It only caused an eyebrow to be raised now. Dad had had health problems, but not the impending heart attack my mother had once used as a weapon. Aunt Helen claims that he had both good and bad days, and occasionally he would express regret for the way things had turned out. On the surface, my mother didn't change. I had abandoned the family, she insisted, not the other way around. She continued to talk about my betrayal to everybody who would hear her. Now, however, fewer people were paying attention. After the visitors had left, Eric looked at me and said softly, "Do you think you'll ever reconcile?" As we were washing dishes together. I thought about it. The inquiry didn't hurt as much as it used to. "I don't know," I responded plainly. "But I've stopped needing it to be the ending of my story." "I don't know," was my honest response. "As long as there are limits and recognition, I'm amenable to it." Freedom from pretense was maybe the greatest gift of this difficult year. I can't go back to pretending. Keeping the peace no longer required me to downplay my suffering. I didn't have to downplay my accomplishments to keep from being jealous. Love should have been given to me without conditions, but now I had to earn it. Little gestures of forgiveness came slowly, discreetly, and for my benefit rather than theirs. Even though I couldn't forget my father's vulnerability, I was able to forgive him. Given that Ethan's entitlement had been fostered by our parents, I was willing to overlook it. I even accepted my mother's manipulation because I knew it was a result of unhealed traumas. However, restoration is not the same as forgiveness. It doesn't make the repercussions go away. It only means that I'm not letting resentment break my heart anymore. Grandma Margaret recognized that difference. Her film showed a mom who was devoted to her family, but also had a clear view of them. Not enough to allow further hurt, but enough to keep relationships together. She had forgiven the financial betrayals. I now look for equilibrium, and she had found it. She left me a legacy that was far more than money or real estate. I learned from her bravery and the approval I'd always wanted but hardly ever got. She taught me that while complete comprehension is not necessary for love, it does require fundamental respect. That boundaries are protective rather than punitive. I made intentions rather than resolutions as the new year drew near. To establish respect-based, genuine connections. To cultivate appreciation for the family I have chosen to support me. To uphold my grandmother's legacy by living authentically and through the foundation. Most significant, though, is to keep in mind that property or cash are not the most valued inheritances. It's self-respect, as well as mission clarity. And nobody can argue with that. That legacy cannot be undermined by anyone. If you have read this far, I would like to hear if you have ever had to set limits with loved ones. How did you strike a balance between compassion and self-defense? Leave a comment with your experience. Additionally, please remember to like and subscribe if this spoke to you. Remind yourself that people who are unable to understand your value clearly do not determine it. I appreciate you listening. And may your own family journey, in whatever form it takes, bring you serenity. The story concludes with quiet strength, clarity, and peace rather than with chaos and retaliation. Sometimes living a better life is a better kind of retaliation than shouting louder. True power is found in developing, healing, and establishing limits. I hope you make the right decision for yourself if you're carrying hurt or betrayal. Decide on dignity. Opt for peace. Have the individuals you cared about the most ever deceived you? How did you handle that discomfort? This is a place for connection, healing, and truth. Share your story in the comments. You're not by yourself. And never forget that the victory lies in rising above.